boys are growing up in an education system where they're mostly surrounded by women.
Right.
Barack, you've talked about the fact that the entire education system isn't even designed to recognize boys and what they need.
Oh my God.
I don't know, but let's get into this convo.
I do want to talk to Emma as a mother, because she's a mother trying to figure this out. And I do think there's a question, like the original question of why do we love our sons and raise our daughters? And
I think we already spent time on that one before. Y'all let me know if y'all heard that before. I'm not going to elaborate too much on that, but that is exactly what happens in a lot of households. We raise our daughters, but we love our sons, and it's all reactionary. It's overcorrection. I got to make sure that my daughter's never put in this position, this a vulnerability that either I was put in or I saw my mother put in, to where my dad could just take advantage of my mother and all that. So it's an overcorrection, while at the same time, you're not raising your sons to be sons or to be men that you would deem as a valuable person that you would want to marry or be in a relationship, or that your daughter would want to be in a relationship with. So what do we end up having? Boys that never grow into men, and little girls that are women before they even become women.
I think that's something worth sort of talking through among mothers, because sadly, many mothers are parenting alone, which is a huge problem. I think Scott Galloway, there are other researchers out there who say that one of the challenges that boys face is that there just aren't enough men in their lives. The men have disappeared, whether through divorce or fatherhood. There are small numbers of male teachers in high schools. Boys are growing up in an education system where they're mostly surrounded by women.
Right.
Barack, you've talked about the fact that the entire education system isn't even designed to recognize boys and what they need.
Y'all may have heard this before. If y'all heard because obviously the last show got cut off. I don't got to keep saying that. The same education system that the Democrats were so concerned with destroying, that their energy towards Donald Trump, I should say, the Democrats were so concerned that Donald Trump was getting rid of, at least as far as the control being from a national standpoint, rather than the states having control over it like before, not having a national organization like the Board of Ed controlling everything. So these Democrats and liberals, they tried to convince us that Project 2025, because it was going to get rid of the Board of Education, that this was so bad, to the point where they were fighting harder against that than they actually fight to fix the broken education system. And I said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. My godmother's husband in Montclair, New Jersey, he was put in place I believe he was the assistant superintendent. He was put in his position to address the education gap between black kids and white kids in Montclair. This was like 30, maybe 40 years ago. And I remember looking at that education report, the more recent one, maybe about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and nothing had changed. If anything, the gap had widened. So this is the problem. When it comes to all of these things, this is why it was an issue with Kamala Harris not having her own plan. The Democrats' plan is just, what are the Republicans doing? What is Trump pushing? All right, we're going to do the opposite. Where's your Project 2025? Where's your layout of what's going to happen? You can't just sit up here and say, well, I wouldn't do anything different than Joe Biden. Okay, well, enough said. There's never any plans put in place to bring about real change. The only time that they will make plans and go to such details and have such a aggressive energy towards something is when it's just opposing what the other side is doing. Barack Obama, Barack, where are you? You've been calling out the education system, saying that it doesn't even suit boys. Where was this energy at? When did we hear about this? Did you realize it when you were president? Did you make any changes about it? Anything. And Ant brings up a great point. Education takes place outside of school too. Education should take place outside of school too. Education should take place everywhere. We should be learning everywhere we are, period. And perhaps if more parents understood what Ant just said, then we would also understand that, Ant, it's not about the education when it comes to the public school system. It's the indoctrination when it comes to the public school system. You have to re-educate. You have to unlearn certain things when it comes to the public school system. I'm still unlearning certain things about history that I learned in school that do not apply to now. Or I should say that we're completely wrong. And unlearning certain principles of you go to college, you do this, you get a nice job. Got to unlearn that because it doesn't apply. It's not applicable to current society. Unlearning different things that I learned in business school because I'm realizing that a lot of my professors, oh, y'all never had businesses. Y'all just read business books based on other professors who never had businesses. You're teaching me from books by professors who never had businesses rather than teaching me from, I don't know, Andrew Carnegie, people who actually had businesses. Teach me about those people. Let's read those books rather than the textbooks that y'all are giving. So it's not about just educating outside the classroom. It's about us taking ownership and understanding that a lot of the things that our kids are learning in school are actually detrimental to them.
First and foremost, want to give a huge shout out to everybody that continues to tap in with us, like and subscribe and join our community. If you haven't already, please make sure that you do. We look forward to engaging in some dope convo with you that can help us all elevate. So like, subscribe, and maybe even share the video if you're feeling real generous. On that note, we'll let you get back to the video. See you soon. Ew.
In my opinion. But this was just, I just wanted to bring up the point that it's just so funny how based on if you listen to Democrats and liberals, you would think that they think that the education system is just fine. But then Barack Obama's having conversations with his wife saying like, yo, this ain't even meant for boys. Like this is Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
You know, boys are growing up in an education system where they're mostly surrounded by women.
Right.
You know, Barack, you've talked about the fact that the entire education system isn't even designed to recognize boys and what they need. So, you know, what do we say to Emma? You know, because again, we don't know whether she's parenting alone or whether she has a husband. But I do think that mothers struggle to figure out what do their sons need. And so they wind up operating out of their own fears and their own instincts, which is to love unconditionally. I think mom was like this. She raised me to be tough because I think she knew what it was like to be a woman. In her mind, she knew what she was preparing me for. The insults, the limitations, the whatever you can think of, the sexism, the biases. So she knew
the same sexism and biases that get you in the club for free, the same sexism and biases that you use to your advantage when it benefits you, but then you complain about it when it maybe doesn't benefit you. So let's and look, there's sexism, there's biasism, there's racism out here. If you choose to allow it to impact you, then that's cool. But let me ask this question. Why is it always pushed that life is so hard for women out here? Maybe, and I said this on the last show. I don't know if it got cut off. I got to keep saying that, even whatever. But I look around at the women in my family, the women in my life, and, you know, maybe I just need to be exposed to other women because, or maybe I'm not paying attention, or I just need to be educated better. What about life is so hard for women? Like I'm genuinely confused on that. What about life is so hard for what? Like I'm confused on it. Especially, we're not talking about the women growing up now that our grandmothers were and that some of our mothers were. I don't see a lot of women moving around how, you know, when I was growing up in my household, how my mom was moving around, working and then handling stuff at the crib, just like if she was a house, you know, just like if she was a housewife or a stay-at-home mom. I don't see a lot of that happening now. So as I'm looking around, I'm like, yo, why do they keep trying to push this to people that life is just so hard for women? There's double standards, of course. And Thoughtfield brought that up. But is life hard for women? Well, if somebody breaks into the house, the guy has to address that threat every time. Like, is that a double standard? Are we cool with that double standard, but not cool with the other? Oh, well, it's hard for women to make it in business. All right, well, now they're just giving opportunities for women in business. You got all the DEI stuff that y'all was pushing. We said that benefits. Now, I know they actually say that it benefits white women more than anybody else. But, like, this is simply to rile you up, to hype you up in whatever way where you got to tell yourself, I'm being oppressed, I'm being this, I'm being... What? How? How? You got Kamala Harris running for president. If Kamala Harris was a man, she wouldn't be. Let me ask y'all this. If Kamala Harris was a man, would she have had a better opportunity of winning or not as good of an opportunity as winning? Now, let's break it down. The only woman, let's look at the women who ran now. Hillary was, let's look at black and black. I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking the question. We can include Hillary in it too. But when I look at Barack Obama, who was a black man running for president, and then I look at Kamala Harris, and I look at who was more impressive, because, well, Kamala's black, y'all told me, right? So, all right, cool. When I look at who had to be more impressive, who had to be more qualified, who had to speak better, who had to just overall was just better. Barack Obama. This is the overcorrection that we talk about. You had Charlemagne tell Joe Biden pretty much, not even pretty much, saying when he did the interview, when Joe Biden disrespected that man and said, you ain't black if you don't vote for me, Charlemagne said, hey, pretty much the only way y'all getting black people to support y'all if you bring on a black woman as a vice president. Damn, like that's the only qualification that you need? It's all overcorrection and reactionary. We miss the boat when it comes to how important just balance is. Are there some changes that we can make when it comes to women being oppressed, certain biases against women, of course. But what ends up happening is we end up hustling backwards. We end up letting a few people at the top convince us to go so hard that we overcorrect the situation. And then when we go so hard in overcorrecting the situation, we end up doing something that's detrimental to us. Just like we overcorrect our this situation, so we raise our young girls, just like Michelle Obama said, you raise your young girls to be strong, business-minded, powerful, making sure that they can adapt to any situation, right? Because they're scared because the world is so hard for women out here. But then what did she start off the statement saying? We love our boys, we raise our daughters. So how does that overcorrection impact us? Now we're raising our daughters to be up here, to be women, to be men, to carry on those traditionally masculine roles at the expense of now the boys that we're raising, they never become men. So now these women that y'all are raising to be so successful, so powerful, now the men that they're choosing from, they're choosing from men that are less than the men that their mom used to complain about. It's all overcorrection. We have to be so careful when we overcorrect in all these situations. You see it in so many different areas. You see it between Israel and Palestine, or just with Israel. I'll give you an example. Candace Owens, we talked about this the other day, and I know I'm going all over the place, but I just want to focus on this point of overcorrection. We get upset when Jewish people say that they're the chosen ones, right? But then Candace Owens, her statement that a lot of people have deemed anti-Semitic, I don't know if it's anti-Semitic, whatever. Christ is king. And then they don't just stop there. They say king of all kings. So if you're pretty much saying that, hey, my savior is, I know y'all other saviors, y'all are kings, Muhammad, David, whoever y'all are worshiping, they're kings, but my God is the king of all kings. Clearly that's going to offend other people who believe in their God more than they believe in your God or whatever, even though it's all the same, whatever. We're not going to have that conversation. It's overcorrection. I spoke on this yesterday, where when we become like, when we're scared to speak on certain things and we're fearful, I think we even mentioned the other day, we have to, it almost like now we get over aggressive in addressing certain situations. And this is the same thing in this type of situation. It's the same thing with overcorrecting. Oh, the minimum wage, they deserve to make more. Okay, so let's pay everybody now $20 an hour. And then what ends up happening? Who does it end up hurting? Who does it end up hurting the most? Now people aren't getting hired for those jobs that used to need those fast food jobs. Now restaurants are getting forced to shut down because they got to pay so much. They can't afford the expenses. A lot of things that we do, we overcorrect, and we don't even understand how it ends up hurting us in the long run because we're not playing out the situation logically, playing out the whole situation. We're playing it out. We're not even playing it out. We're just reacting to it emotionally in that time. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. So, and great comments in the chat. I can't read everything, but great comments in the chat. I agree with a lot that's being said. If people really believe men and women were the same in every way, double standards would not exist. Yeah, double standards would not exist. How would we look at certain situations where E. Jean Carroll or Donald Trump can be accused of certain things, raping these women and doing all this other stuff? Oh, well, we look at it a little bit differently because, he's the man and he has the power. He's stronger. He's all this. So let's not try to act like we're pushing for feminism in a real way, which is equality. I don't believe in equality. Equality from a moral standpoint, of course, like everybody deserves a certain level of respect. Like I don't determine whether I respect you more or less based on you being a man or a woman or based on you being gay or whatever. That's not how I look at life. But we're not the same. We're not the same. I told y'all before, Coach Caldwell, the coach, first thing that he did, the first meeting that we ever had was he told everybody, I will treat you fair, but I will not treat you equally. It's not fair to treat people equally. It's not fair to treat people equally. Think about that. It's not fair. And it's so funny how we can understand this in certain situations when it comes to the social programs and what we provide aid here and there, but we can't understand it in other ways. There has to be just a balance, a sensible and reasonable balance. In my opinion, are you going to treat your autistic child equally to your other child? Maybe. I don't know. To each their own. What did Thought wrote? Candace sounds intelligent, kind of if she is with a white man. Candace sounds intelligent. I missed that one. I don't know what you got to elaborate on that before I respond. I just don't know what the context is.
You have to have a mouth. You have to be able to speak up for yourself. With you, she wanted you to be nice so that you wouldn't get in trouble or you wouldn't get arrested. But was that who you were? So what do we say to the Emmas of the world? How do we sort of start thinking as a society about helping mothers raise sons because they're doing it alone and we're being told that we don't have what it takes to give boys all of what they need?
You don't. And this is, once again, the problem. You're putting a Band-Aid on a solution instead of addressing the actual infection. The problem is find a man. Barack Obama started off this show, and it's so funny how when Barack Obama started off the show, what did he say? He said, hold on. He said that parenting starts with choosing the right partner. Find a man. You can't fill every single role. I know society has taught you that a woman can get celebrated on Mother's Day. And if you're single, you can be celebrated on Father's Day. It's not realistic. It's not fair to your kids. Your kids are suffering from it. The number one thing that you can do, have a man in the household. So the number one thing that you could do is be careful about who you're allowing to in you. You knew that dude wasn't ish when you first started dealing with him. Now you're surprised and all of a sudden can't be with him now when you have kids. It's too much.
Well, look, I think you started hinting at it. as somebody who was raised by a single mom, not perfectly, but that unconditional love as a start is the right one. Mm-hmm. I do think, though, thinking about raising boys in the same way you're thinking.
And I think we already went over this part, so I'm not going to elaborate on it now that I think that y'all did hear this part. I know that I talked about it, but I think I'm not sure if it went black or went silent at that point. But Barack Obama, you were not raised by a single mother. I don't want to bring up the stats, but you were raised by the Satoros. I think your mom was single, I think maybe up until like 3 years old or something, like 4 or 5 or something like that. But then you're like 6 to 12 and beyond, I believe that you had 2 parents. So he's being a little bit like leaning into the victimhood and trying to sell us on something that is not totally true, in my opinion. Like, no.
About raising daughters, which is how do you make them good, responsible people who know how to function and know how to understand themselves well enough that they can navigate this really complicated world and setting high expectations. So there are a lot of these things that apply to boys and girls. I do think that there are some particular issues with boys that as a society we're not addressing. I do think as a society we have to create more structures for boys and men to have guidance, rituals, frameworks, encouragement.
It's called a father, Barack. It's called having a dad in the household. Like, what is he beating around the bush for? Tell Emma she needs to go find a man. Tell her to go get back with her child's father. He's saying all this stuff. Barack, where are we going to find all this? Are we going to go to the YMCA? Are we going to go to the Boys and Girls Club? Where are we going? No, have a father in the household. He's literally describing a dad. Structure, some rituals. Like, look.
To be able to meet a wide range of role models so that whatever their inclinations, they can see a path to success that isn't just sports or money, making a lot of money. And so that's on all of us together. What I would say to Emma would be, in your community, even if you have a wonderful male partner who's in the house, I think it still would be good to find assets in the community, people in the community, friends in your community, places of worship.
If y'all have heard Barack speak before, then you know that he's talking some BS when he starts coming across as not the gifted orator that he is. Bro, just say they need a father in the household. All these things that you're discussing are never going to replace or come close to replacing or fill that void of having a father in the household. They need to have, be around different influences that can. No, you need a dad. And it would be he would have absolutely no problem if guys were complaining about this and say like, yo, you need to get back with the mom, the child's mother. Like we would have no issue saying that. But when it comes to men, this is wild.
Community organizations, what have you, where there are a bunch of men who can be sort of elders to boys. And so they're not just looking at one particular role model, but many. And one of the things when Michelle and I first started dating and I'd go over to your guys' house, one of the things I loved was just, seeing all your uncles and your cousins. And there were a bunch of different kinds of men. There were men that were kind of soft-spoken, and then there were men that were loud, and there were men who were engineers, and then there were men who were police officers, or they drove, a jitney cab. Yeah. Right. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of times boys need is not just exposure to one guy, one dad, no matter how good the dad is.
He can't be
Like,
everything.
he can't be everything. And that,
Yo, this is the most disgusting thing. Besides maybe him taking the fake sip of water to try to convince all the kids in community in Flint, Michigan, that the drinking water was safe, where he took the fake sip. This may be one of the most disgusting things that I've seen Barack Obama do. We have no problem saying and convincing women that they could do everything, right? This man just saying he is diminishing the value of a father. They need to be around a bunch of men, and not just even a good dad can't do it. You don't ever hear this energy saying, well, little girls need to be around a bunch of girls, not just the mother. You don't even hear people even say that. It just sounds crazy when I just even said it, because you just don't hear it. And it's exactly what Steve said. He's examining everything before it comes out of his mouth to make sure that it jives with the progressive narrative the Dems are pushing. This is why nobody respects Democrat leadership, the men in the Democratic Party. Name one that you respect. Tim Walz, Gavin Newsom, Cory Booker, Hakeem Jeffries. Like, who is there? This is wild. This is, bro, this is bad, man. He's a cornball, man. I'm telling you, he is a cornball. Listen to this.
Okay, and then there were men that were loud, and there were men who were engineers, and then there were men who were police officers, or they drove, a jitney cab. Yeah, right. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of times boys need is not just exposure to one guy. One dad, no matter how good the dad is.
He can't be everything.
He can't be everything. And that boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad.
Yeah.
Right?
It's Dak. Just want to thank you for checking out our video and visiting the OG Network. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you give us a like. And if you're looking to join a community of inspired individuals striving for purposeful abundance, subscribe. And if you're feeling real generous, share the video with some friends and family. All right, I'll see y'all soon. Ew.